everyone. Good afternoon. I know a couple people are still joining us, and that's all right, but just to be aware of everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Brittany Sourjohn, and I work in the Office of University Events and Protocol. We're so glad you're able to join us today. Just a couple of items before I turn it over to our presenter for this afternoon. Please place any questions you have in the chat. It will be monitored by my colleague Suzette, and we made sure to leave time for Q&A after the presentation. After the webinar, we will send out a notification when the resources and the recording of this webinar are posted on the OUEP website. Please mark your calendar for the upcoming protocol workshop with Chris Young, which is June 23rd. This information was sent out via Mecca. And we have two upcoming webinars through OUEP, which are happening on July 9th and July 30th. So please stay tuned for topics and registration info. Today, we will be highlighting one of our approved vendors, MarxProductions. They are a locally owned small business with a concentration in audiovisual platforms. We have a fellow Sun Devil with us today, Steven Glab from MarxProductions, and he's going to discuss the world of virtual events. Steven, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Very well done. Can you hear me? Perfect. Okay, cool. So my name is Steven Glab. I'm with MarxProductions, like Brittany said. We are a corporate audiovisual production company, specializing mostly in large corporate conferences and meetings, but we do a lot of other things too, fundraisers for Boys and Girls Clubs, stuff like that, and just smaller stuff in town. As kind of happened for everybody, COVID had a big impact on the events world. We got hit pretty early, and we'll probably be one of the ones that are hit the longest. So it was really a matter of adapting. We've always done live streaming and some types of virtual events, but it was always kind of a secondary aspect of a live conference. And overnight, it switched to being kind of the main focus, and you have to build this whole event to where people can just log in and participate 100% online. So things have definitely changed. I know things are sort of getting back to normal-ish for a lot of people, but for our industry and any events, as you probably know, it's going to be, kind of a long ride. So to give you a quick outline of how I'm going to lay things out today, I'm going to start with a screen share, which will be a short video with me going through a presentation about virtual events that was produced here in our offices. We have a studio set up, a recording editing studio, and it can actually broadcast out live to virtual events too. So I'm going to play that. From there, I'm going to show you a little bit more about the preferred platform that we use for virtual events, and then play another short video about a little bit more of what you can do with the production side of a virtual events. And then I'll open it up to some Q&A. But right now, let me get into that screen share and show you the first video. Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today for this webinar about virtual events. My name is Steven Glab. I'm the Vice President of Operations at MarxProductions. And what I want to do here today is a little different than the standard webinar. I want to show you rather than just tell you about what you can do with a little bit of higher production value in a virtual event setting. MarxProductions is an audiovisual company founded in 2001, and we're based out of Chandler, Arizona, so we're a local company. What we specialize in is corporate events, but we do other events as well, events of all sizes ranging from small concerts to 5,000 person conferences, and we travel all around the country and sometimes internationally to do these. We've got some Fortune 500 companies, some big companies you might have heard of. They include Motley Fool, Harkins Theaters, another local company, and PetSmart. So to kind of begin, I want to say, what is a virtual event? You have to define a virtual event before I start talking about how to do a virtual event or things to think about when you're doing a virtual event. And virtual event is a pretty arbitrary definition. You know, a lot of people define it different ways. How I'm going to define it is any event held online that is not a single track, direct click, multi-way meeting, a Zoom call or a Skype, something like that. I'm giving it a really broad definition because I don't want to limit and say, well, this isn't a virtual event, because there are a lot of things out there that we would define as virtual events. So I don't want to narrow the definition too much and tell you, no, we can't cover that, or that isn't technically a virtual event because of whatever. I want to fit as much in there as possible. So I'm going to go over a few of the reasons why you would want to host a virtual event versus a singular Zoom or Skype style meeting. And essentially, I always like to say that the virtual event platform is the venue for your event. And those meeting rooms, like a Zoom or Skype call, are individual meeting rooms. So if you're in a large event venue, you have multiple of those rooms. And of course, you want to access them all via a singular registration. And that is essentially what a virtual event platform does. So once you register for that platform, you go to a landing page that lets you navigate between your agenda and those meeting rooms, to a networking area, to an exhibit hall or a list of sponsors. And overall, this brings up the attendee engagement quite a bit. As I mentioned before, the registration page for a webinar or a singular meeting room and a virtual event are almost identical. You're going to do the usual capture information about your attendees or users, and you can take those for marketing or analytics, whatever you want to do with them. But beyond this page is where things start to get different. The webinar is going to take you to maybe a landing page that says, wait for this time, this is when we go live, and you have your singular meeting room. But beyond that, there is usually not much more to it. A virtual event is going to be different. A virtual event is going to take you to a homepage that encompasses your whole event and not just one meeting. So at the top of this page, you'll have a navigation bar that can take you between your agenda, your sponsors, your exhibitors, your community networking area. And as you can quickly see on this agenda, there are multiple meeting rooms all on this one page. So you got signed up for all of that with a singular registration. So I gave you a quick glance of everything, but I want to go a little bit more in depth on the two sides of a virtual event, and those are the platform and the production. The platform, as I said before, is the container for your overall event that handles the landing page, the registration, networking, social, agenda, and all of that links to your production, whether it's live or pre-recorded, your meeting rooms. Each platform does this slightly differently, but essentially that is the same goal that all of the platforms have. The similarities between these platforms are registration. Most of them are priced on a per event basis. Most of them provide some sort of overall event agenda, even if they're designed differently. And right now, an important one to focus on is that they all have lead times for event production. And those lead times can be very long because the industry is extremely busy right now. So you could be looking at 4 to 8 to possibly 12-week lead times on getting your event up and running, depending on the platform and scale of your event. Where they differ starts to get a little bit more to it. The pricing varies greatly, and I focus on that because it's an obvious thing, but it really can range from hundreds of dollars all the way to 50,000 plus for a very similar platform. So I want to make sure that you really look around between these platforms. If the first one you see just blows you away with pricing, keep looking and you can probably find something that fits your budget. The general design and landing page differ. There are two main ways that platforms seem to be going with these. One way is the clean, simple, responsive website that has some graphics, But generally, it's a flat website with links on it that take you to the different parts of your event. The other one is similar, but it's an image of a real conference or event space, and it tries to simulate that feel where you click this hallway to go to this room, or you click this sign to go to this vendor's booth. So it's just more of an immersive feel they're going for. Some allow you to bring your production team to edit the site. Some require you purchase a full white glove service from them where they edit everything and you are hands off 100%. Some of them work well with live streaming and video on demand, and some of them only do one or the other. The networking social functions I'll go over in a minute, but those are a big selling point, and this is where they differ a lot. Also, on that same note, exhibit booths, how they style them, the functionality they have, those are all very different between platforms. Finally, integrations with other platforms. Some platforms integrate with a lot of different things. Some of them do not, and you kind of have to bring things in manually if you want to try to integrate them. To go over the layout difference really quick, here's an example of a clean and an example of the simulated event space. Pretty self-explanatory here, but the clean has links at the top. It's relatively flat, easy to navigate, visually appealing, but not too complex. The simulated event space, it has signs, it has an open area. You click all those signs to decide where you want to go in your virtual event. They all go to the same place as the flat page. It's just a different visual layout. For the networking social, like I said, this is a major point where these platforms differentiate. They all have user profiles, but from there, they start to get very different on what features they have, what capabilities they have. These can include one-to-one messaging, that could be chat, that could be video. They can include meeting scheduling. You can schedule, some of them can schedule one-to-one meetings, some of them schedule group meetings, and they can find a time that works for everybody's agenda. Some of them have a dedicated roundtable area, speed networking, that's kind of like a chat roulette functionality. Attendee introductory selfie videos, which is a little bit more complex, but it allows people to bring in some more of their personality to the event. And some of them offer integrated gamification where you can say, hey, attendee, you do this and you get X amount of points, and maybe you give a prize out at the end on whoever had the most points to encourage attendee engagement. So here are a short list of platforms that I think are worth demoing. There are a lot more out there. I've seen a lot more, but these are some that do a pretty good job, and they offer some interesting features and just cover a wide range of, pricing and functionality. Starting from the top, it's the most expensive on this list, Social 27. It has a lot of that networking. It has, like I said, the selfie introductory video. It's got a lot of those higher end features. Below that is Pathable, a little more inexpensive. It is based off of Zoom, so you integrate through Zoom and they build the event around that. It's still very nice looking, very clean. It's a little bit cheaper than the Social 27, but definitely a nice service. Thirdly, Bizzabo, and this is the event platform to note that we picked to go with as our in-house platform. So just throwing that out there, but it's a little bit less of the high-end features as Pathable and Social 27, but the pricing is much cheaper. It is much more inexpensive. And then finally, I want to throw this out here just because I know some people are going to be looking to have a shoestring budget event, but they want something more than just doing Zoom calls or blasting out their own emails, and that is Hopin. If you search for Hopin on Google, you will find their website, and it seems to be a startup, very cheap pricing. They're adding features all the time, but it comes with that same thing. They're not necessarily an established old company that you can trust to have 100% uptime. I can't say that they don't, but I just want to throw it out there. If you go with them, please make sure to do your homework on them. Please make sure to demo thoroughly and just, know what you're getting into. One thing I want to make sure to point out is that there are alternative platforms out there. Not every virtual event has to have a fully integrated platform. Some events don't need registration. They don't need agenda or all of that higher end networking functionality. You can host a virtual event on a Facebook Live, a YouTube, or a Twitch. Especially if you're on a low budget, these are great options. And the other positive is that a lot of your attendees are probably already on these platforms, so that's another benefit as well. The second side to a virtual event is the production. And the production is what your event looks and feels like beyond the virtual event platform. Your choice of production type will depend on your event goals and sometimes your budget. And also it is good to note that some platforms limit what production types you can use. To start off, the first production type I'll talk about is Zoom. It's something that everybody knows. It's relatively inexpensive. It's easy to use. And while it might not be perfect for all of your virtual event items, it does have its pros for things such as the Zoom happy hour, which is kind of an interesting use case that has come along recently. A second type of production is the interactive meeting room. And this is more of a content-focused production type. It doesn't have the video quality that a live stream or a Zoom meeting has, but it does have ways that you can upload your own content, bring it in, and it's very highly interactive, including whiteboards and things like that. So it's kind of like a teacher-student interactive type environment. Some examples of that are Adobe Connect or Visibo Interact. The third and sort of final type of production type that I'll talk about is live streaming. And I'm going to split this into two types because I'm going to briefly explain a DIY, do-it-yourself style live stream. And I'm also going to talk about live streaming from a professional company. So for the DIY or do-it-yourself style live streaming, this may be something that you want to look into if you have zero or extremely limited budget, and if it does not matter if your event goes 100% perfectly, because you are at risk of having technical issues. But if you would like to do this, it can be done free or extremely low cost. OBS Studio and Streamlabs OBS are both great pieces of software that will allow you to live stream an event. People use this all the time on Twitch and YouTube streams, and they can run really high quality events on them once they get to know how to use them. Moving on to the professional side of live streaming. And this isn't to say that once you jump to this level, you're going to have a TV style show where graphics are flying around the screen and everything is just extremely highly produced. You can keep it simple, and the production value will really vary by your goals for your event and your budget. If you keep it simple, you can keep those costs low. An example of something somebody might have watched recently is Governor Ducey's COVID addresses. Those were a professional looking live stream, but they were done on the lower end of the production value scale. For more complicated events, you can pretty much have the sky as the limit for your production value. You can have multiple people calling in or remote cameras in multiple locations. You can have graphics flying around the screen. You can have video rolls. You can have tons of people on screen in boxes at one time. It can essentially look like a live news broadcast. As a production company, one of the first things we noticed when we started doing virtual events is that people's webcam and microphone quality varied greatly. We wanted to combat this, so we came up with a solution called the Meeting in a Box Rental Kit. It's an all-in-one turnkey kit with high-quality streaming equipment. It has laptop, webcam, desktop lights, desktop microphone, and wireless earbud, which we do not ask for to be returned. It's plug and play, and it sets up in less than 10 minutes. I always say that the longest part of setting it up is getting it out of the case and onto your desk. We also include 24-hour tech support by phone, email, etc. For clients that really want to raise their production value, we have developed an in-house and mobile studio. Essentially, it's high-quality production equipment for live stream and recorded content. It's green screen, we have LED walls, we have hard scenic backdrops, we integrate with remote presenters and panels via webcam. The cameras are all operated remotely just to ensure the COVID social distancing practices are followed. And we can set the studio up in our offices and have you come to us, or we can go to wherever your event might be hosted. So I want to just take this time to recap some things and just
point you in the right direction on some things to consider when you're wanting to put together a virtual event. I think you have to start first with the goals of your event. Really have to hammer home what goals you have, which are the most important. And I would even write them down, make a list, and put them in on that list based on importance in order. When you get that list of goals, you have to decide with those goals, what is going to be most important to your overall event quality? Is it going to be the platform, or is it going to be the production? If the production is 100% needed to be a certain way to hit this goal, then you move on to picking your production platform. If it's the opposite and the platform, maybe it's a networking goal or a social goal, so the platform is the most important piece of the puzzle, then I would highly suggest picking your platform first and fitting a production style in that works with that platform. There are a list of things to think about when you're getting platform together. Do you need an integrated virtual event platform, or could you use one of those Twitch or Facebook styles? Which of these needs are flexible, which are not? Estimate your attendee number, because that's going to come in when it comes to cost and which platforms you can actually use. What's your budget? That's going to be a big one. Some platforms are going to be cut out immediately if you don't have a budget of $20,000+. So then you got to go, what kind of content are we going to do? Are we presenting 100% live? Are we presenting pre-recorded? Is it going to be a mix of both? Do we need it to be saved for a video on demand so that attendees can watch later? And I would really say go demo platforms. That's the best way to see it. Ask for a demo. If they can't give you a demo, then their tech support and customer service is probably not going to be that great anyways. And if they do give you a demo, you're going to get a lot better feel for that platform than what is available from just the sales items on their website. And I would also say one more time, please, please, please do not forget about platform lead time. Early planning is better. Lead time can be 4 to even 12 weeks. So please plan early. On the production side of things, as I mentioned, have a goal and decide the level and type of production that fits your event and budget. And most events have different mixes of production types. You don't have to have every session be the same production type. You can live stream a general session, you can use a Zoom call for a happy hour, and you can use an interactive meeting room for a breakout. Also, make note of how many presenters and panelists you will want on stage for each session or portion of the event. This is going to be big because that might limit what production style you have to go with, and it's also going to just make it a little bit more complex the more people you have on stage at once. To continue on the production side of things, I want you to think one more time about, do any sessions need recorded and hosted as video on demand? Because while that is a platform feature, it is something to think about and remind your production team, because if you do not get that record, that is content that is lost forever. So it is very important. Also, are you mixing live and pre-recorded content together? Because if you are, there's certain platforms or there's certain production types that may not work for you. And I want to go back to that pre-recording. Pre-recording is important. A lot of people want to do their event 100% live, but pre-recording removes so many variables from the equation that it is the best way to ensure that your event goes smoothly. Also, think about other details. Is everybody going to present via webcam? Do they have the proper equipment? Those are things you need to look at, and those are things that you need to test before the event day. And that brings me to rehearsal and test days. You have to have rehearsal and test days. If you don't, you will have zero time to work on any technical problems that come up when your show starts. You need to test early and test everybody's equipment and connections to make sure that everything will go smoothly on event day. One final thing to think about, and I wanted to make a slide specifically about this, is watch out when you think about using copyrighted content. Using it in a live event is one thing, because usually it's kind of skirts this gray area where nobody cares, nobody notices, you don't get in trouble, nothing bad happens. But if you use copyrighted content on a virtual event or a live stream, there is a real risk that they will flag, they will remove the audio, or they will fully take down your event from their site. This is especially important to note on free and public hosts, YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitch. They will absolutely flag your content. As an alternative, you should look for other sources of royalty-free, non-copyrighted images, music, video, whatever it is you need for your presentations, And places to find those are Audio Jungle. They have music, audio tracks, royalty free. Most of them do cost money, but you can use them in your content. Pond 5 is another one. It has music, images, and video. Really great quality content, easy to access. And finally, Vector Stock. And this is vector images. So this is kind of for designing your own graphics out of them, but it's another great source for images that will not get you in trouble on these streaming or virtual platforms. So that's the conclusion of my webinar on virtual events. I'll open it up to some Q&A here in a minute, but I just want to thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And while I know I didn't cover everything completely in depth, virtual events are a really, really large topic. There's a lot going on. It's a constantly evolving subject. Things are constantly changing. New platforms are coming up, new ways of doing things. It's a really kind of a time of innovation in the events world. So I just want to say, if there's something you feel like you didn't grasp, please feel free to ask me after this session. You can always reach out to us via email, experiences@marxpro.com, or you can call our offices at 602-437-9300. We'll be more than happy to consult with you on any event questions you might have. We would definitely love to work with you. So thanks again, everybody. Appreciate you taking your time to be here with me. Thank you.
All right, so that's kind of the brief overview of virtual events. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a demo page that we have set up for a client. We actually have a demo we're doing with them tomorrow, and show you sort of how we lay out with our preferred platform, what a virtual event looks like, the different pages that go along with it. Just the overall kind of how it looks and feels. And as I mentioned in that video, Bizzabo is our preferred platform for virtual events. Reason being is that we like the way it lays everything out. They started out as a event company, and they're sort of transitioning into the virtual event world, whereas a lot of the platforms out there started out as online meeting companies, and they are now trying to transition into the overall event industry. And so I think Bizzabo has a better feel for what people are looking for out of an actual event, a larger scale event, than some of these other companies. And we also were able to get a year-long contract with them that allows us to meet the price points that a lot of our clients have. Obviously, people aren't spending money all that much right now. And in the end, we can actually charge less than our clients would be able to go straight to Bizzabo and do a one-off event. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody there. And I'll scroll through some of these pages, show you a little bit what they all look like, and then I will move on and show what those interactive meeting rooms look like. So this is just the landing page right here. We have a little countdown going on it. There's a few other widgets you can do. But the cool thing is kind of gets a little bit of that social or networking already built into here, is that you have a speakers page. If you want to highlight anybody particular right there on the front page, or say somebody won an award or any sort of thing, if you want to just highlight anybody, and you can click their profile, find all of their relevant info, who they work for, what they do, direct links to LinkedIn, stuff like that. It's kind of nice little features. Same thing here. These are not necessarily speakers, but attendees you want to highlight. And here's the person we're demoing to, so there are special guest attendees. So right here is the registration. Cool thing about this is that I can have the registration set up through this site where it's all in one kind of, and you can sell tickets, or you can have tickets be free. In this case, it's free. You can also link out to a third-party registration site, and we can import them in to this Bizzabo site, to where you end up using whichever registration platform you're most comfortable with already, and we can still bring in those registrations here. Obviously, sponsors are a big deal to a lot of our clients, so we do like that it highlights sponsors. You can have it linked to wherever, give a little brief background about who they are. The community page I'll show you in a second here. If it is a hybrid events are going to be kind of a big deal here in the medium term future, we think. So it's nice that it does have the ability to list a in-person event address, and you can also link to the virtual side of the event all in the same space. So that's kind of cool too. So obviously you can download an app. I feel like apps used to be a little bit bigger a few years ago, but still an option there. The agenda is probably the best part about this particular platform. The agenda is super clean. This is a pretty simple 3-part event, but you can have multiple days. If there's 5 things going at once, it totally supports having concurrent sessions, concurrent items running, and it'll just let you scroll through from left to right, kind of like a Netflix scroll where it sort of carousels. This can link out to anything. So there's the broadcast, starts 2 minutes before session time. And this first one, we're going to have them click and it's going to link them out to Zoom. And that's going to be where we meet up with them in a Zoom call and kind of give them a little bit of background and tell them about the site and the front page, landing page, stuff like that. The next one is going to be a separate link. And when they go to that page, it'll have a live stream that is counting down, and then we'll go to the actual live stream that we're running from our studio and give them a little kind of taste of that. And then the last one is a completely different platform, and that's the interactive meeting room style platform. And so it's just kind of nice that you can have one agenda and it's not necessarily sticking you in a place where you have to do one certain event or meeting type. You know, I could have a Zoom happy hour later in the day, and then it allows you a little bit more flexibility than some of the platforms out there. So I'm going to we'll skip over speakers really quickly here, but go to the community. So where I had mentioned sort of the Pathable and the Social 27 have a little bit of a leg up over the platform we chose, is that they do have more networking options. They do have sort of the roundtable areas that are built into their platforms. They have the selfie type introduction videos, and it definitely is something that is very feature packed, and I like it a lot. And we've directed some of the clients we work with to go with their platform, and this has a few less features than that, but the price point is a lot better. So that's what made us choose to go with this as our, preferred platform. This one just has direct messaging. You can find people by their organization, by their job title. I can sit here and just send them a direct message. They'll get a little notice saying somebody messaged you, and then we can connect outside of the event from here. So not necessarily too over the top there, but it's functional. It allows that networking, and it's pretty simple to use. Sponsor and exhibits, they act pretty much the same here. You can have, you click and find out who they are. And then if you want to link to their website, or you can also link back to one of those interactive meeting rooms if the sponsors want to, do kind of a virtual exhibit hall type setup. So to jump into that interactive meeting room, since that's kind of one of the more confusing aspects because I didn't describe it too much there. The interactive meeting room is sort of like a teaching style room. You might have participated in one of these before, but it's sort of a do-it-yourself streaming out room where people can come, they can chat, and they can participate. This one, I had already loaded it up some content. I have my PowerPoint here, and this is one of the PowerPoints I was giving via webcam early on in the whole pandemic thing. So, what happens after COVID? But also you can add other things to your playlist, and I can transition directly to an image if I want. There's a render that we did for an event, and then I can transition straight to a video too. So it's kind of
a little bit
simple
about your company.
Run it yourself type platform, which is great for some of the smaller rooms that we do. We have a lot of clients that do many concurrent rooms, so keeps costs down, allows presenters to hop on webcam right down here and do a lot of this stuff themselves while still being simple enough to not be too confusing for people to use. So now that I've showed you that, I'll show you a video we made about the higher end production kind of live streaming platform that we use. And let me start that right now. A little better visual representation than the last one I showed you.
Hi everyone, I'm DJ Johnson with MarxProductions, and I'm excited to be speaking with you today about our vMix General Sessions and give you a little insight on what we've been working on the last couple months. So right now I'm physically standing in the Marx virtual studio, and the cool thing about the studio is we actually designed it to be completely mobile. So we're able to pack up everything and take it pretty much anywhere. The most important feature when we were designing this system was flexibility and versatility. As you can see, I'm standing in front of a green screen. Now, the cool thing about green screen technology is we're able to pretty much change anything to really give you and your attendees a customized experience. We're able to change colors, backgrounds, and pretty much anything to really give you your brand in the virtual world. We can bring in other elements as well, so I can present PowerPoint. I can utilize programs like Slido for polling and Q&A. And we can even play videos and go full screen. Essentially, what we're trying to do is translate what we would do at a physical conference to the virtual world using a full production studio that can bring in local and remote sources to create a seamless virtual production. So not only can we bring in content, but I can also bring in live feeds from remote locations. So this will allow your presenters to present remotely. And to make this a little bit easier, we've actually created a Meeting in the Box kit. And to go over that kit a little bit more with you, I have Victor on a call, and he's going to go over what comes in the kit, as well as give you a little bit more details about the software that we utilize in these calls. Hey, Victor, how you doing? Go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, DJ. Yes, so what I'm currently using is our Marx Meeting in a Box setup. Included in that setup will be a webcam that's placed on top of the laptop, 2 lights so there's optimal lighting conditions, a microphone, and it's all plugged into a USB port that's then plugged into the laptop that's also provided with the Meeting in a Box setup. Last thing you'll need are the Bluetooth headphones, and that's it. Then your presenters can use the vCall link we send them, which the vCall will allow them to participate in a low latency return feed that'll allow that presenter to interact in real time with what's happening on screen. There's no complicated apps that your presenters have to download. It's all web browser based. So once they receive the link, they'll click it, type in their name, and they'll be connected to the virtual meeting. And all that takes less than 10 minutes. So real simple, real easy. So I'll go ahead and send it back to you, DJ. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Now that we've gone over a bit of the front end of things, I'd like to take it to Rob in the command center and let him tell you a little bit more about the vMix software that we actually use to control everything. Hey, Rob, how you doing? Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, DJ. So like he said, I'm Rob Johnson with MarxProductions. I'm currently sitting right now in what we call the command center, or the virtual tech table, whatever you want to call it. This is the area where all of our inputs, all of our content arrive here. So you're talking PowerPoints, you're talking those Slido interactive elements, could be videos, could be your presenters presenting on webcams from across the country, could be you in studio here, could be our studio having gone to you for your facility to record your keynote. All of those elements will come into one place where they're controlled by, let's call them a technical director. That's what I've been doing today, is mixing this live for you. What's great about having that versatility is we can now bring a more immersive environment to the virtual world. Whereas before I kind of felt like it was mostly just Zoom people in little boxes. I felt like it was really stifling, and that what was happening is people were just having to sit back and just watch something instead of being part of it. So with a lot of the layering and a lot of that green screen technology, with the low latency feeds, we're really able to start bringing people into a more immersive environment where they feel like they're a part of something as opposed to just watching it. That's really why we went ahead and built the system. We didn't see anything out there that kind of matched what we needed to bring those live, real world event options into the virtual world, if that makes sense. So, really, it's been nice to have the ability to do what we've wanted to do and not feel like we're just contained inside of a computer screen. I'm going to kick it back to DJ here in a minute, but just so you guys know, everything you've seen today is just a scratching of the surface. If you can imagine it, we can make it happen. We can make it happen live, or we can do pre-recorded sessions. Really, it's up to you, and we're just a conduit here to help you connect to your audience, to communicate your message, whatever that is. That's what Marx does. It's what we've been doing for a long time. We just now finally have the tools to do it in the virtual world in a way that we felt was indicative, representative of what a real event felt like, because it felt like we've all been missing that a little bit, DJ. So if you have anything else to say on that, I'm going to kick it back to you, but thank you all, man, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Rob. So now that we heard from a few people, let's bring everybody back together and see what a panel would look like. With the vMix call-in software, we're able to bring in 8 separate remote sources. Now, these are all going to be low latency connections, so everybody's able to interact and talk in real time. With the software, we have a little bit more control over things like rogue mics and other annoying things that happen in regular video chats. So whether people are across the hallway or across the nation, everyone is seamlessly connected. Thank you so much for checking out our virtual general session technology. We really appreciate you tuning in. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with everything going on over here at Marx. Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon.
So that right there was a video giving you a little bit more about the production side of things. That's all. We've got a giant computer sitting in our offices that's linked up to 10 different cameras and can take up to 8 outside sources via the web and kind of layer them all together and make whatever type of layout or show that you would like and broadcast it out live. So it's a pretty cool setup. And it really just depends on what you want to do with it, on how crazy you can get. But I will start to take any questions that you might have. Just let me know. And then, yeah.
Thanks, Steven. Okay, we do have a couple questions for you. The first question I'm going to ask is, do you provide any editing services for pre-recorded content?
Yeah, absolutely we do. That's actually something that we've done for all of our clients, even prior to doing virtual events for them, is we did a lot of pre-production on the videos that they would roll, say at the start of their event or during their event, or even we are on site taking video and making post-event videos that they host online and stuff. So we do have full edit suites here and can make any sort of graphic or just video content as well.
Okay, perfect. Another question is, can you talk a little bit more about scope of work as it relates to lead time? Like you did discuss that, but what types of projects would need a little bit more lead time?
I would say anything that needs in person right now, or to have, if we would need to come and set up on site and then bring people in, that's going to take a little bit more lead time, just because there's some actual hard things you have to figure out first. Where are we going to get our internet connection? Is it reliable? Broadcasting out of our office, we know exactly, how our network is set up. We know how the computers are all set up. So going out and depending on somebody else's internet is always something that we need to check on before we do it. And from there, I would say that it is platform wise, because platforms are, if there's a specific platform you want to use, that's going to be your main decider of lead time, just because those platforms are filled up and they aren't able to get you anything quickly. And that's another good thing about our Bizzabo contract, is that we have a very, very short turnaround time compared to if somebody went directly to them and wanted to, hey, I need to host something next week. Yeah, we can put it together. But if you went directly to these sites, you probably wouldn't be able to. But beyond that, it's just complexity of number of sessions, rooms. If you have a lot of presenters, it's a lot of people's hardware to test, a lot of content to wrangle, and just get people comfortable with bringing them in, because, like I said, those interactive meeting rooms are pretty simple, but we still do those day before or a few days before tests with every single presenter. So the more presenters you have, the longer that takes.
Okay, perfect. Another question that we have is this mostly targeted for larger events? Because I think the group that we have here, they could be doing anything from, under 150 up to thousands. So can you talk a little bit about the scale?
Yeah. So the way I kind of noticed that, I talk about everything from this corporate event standpoint, just because that's what I'm so used to. But you can do it, you can host, people have been doing concerts virtually, people have been doing a lot, and scale, it's not actually a problem. Part of how we charge is per attendee. So the more attendees you have, the more cost there is. I have an event coming up in a couple weeks here that has only 60 total attendees, and it's actually functioning as almost just an exhibit hall rather than having multiple sessions. So just because you have that virtual event site does not necessarily mean you have to have a ton of sessions or have to host a ton of people. The more people you have, the more complex it gets, the more sessions you have, that adds to the cost. But if you just need that landing page and that networking ability for any size event that you want, just something cleaner, an easier way for people to access your content, it's definitely doable. And the fewer people you have, the lower budget is. So totally doable.
Okay. It sounds like a couple people in the virtual audience were experiencing a little bit of a connectivity issue, which led to the question of would your platform or back of house might be able to help with some of those connectivity issues?
Yeah, so that's one of the big things with virtual events is that you're at kind of the mercy of people's internet connection. So here's a couple things that I always suggest. From our side of things, the internet connection, we can test our network. We've got basically two different internet access lines coming in so that if something goes down on one, we have Cox goes down, CenturyLink, we can swap over and get the whole thing going right away. So that's one thing that we can't control, but people's end connection for attendees, or even if you're bringing in live remote presenters, you can't necessarily control that. So what we suggest is when we're live streaming out, Zoom is usually pretty good about kind of fixing those network issues. But when we live stream out, it kind of reduplexes the whole stream into different bitrate levels. So if somebody's connection is not acting perfectly, it'll just go to a slightly lower quality stream. So hopefully they can still get the end content there. And then also we always suggest we're testing all presenters' internet connections, and we really suggest doing as much as you can pre-recorded, because if their internet starts to get wonky in the middle, you can kind of work it out and then you can restart your record. And when you end up putting it into this whole switcher computer layering thing, you can switch between it just like it's a live show. And the end result is the same, but you got that perfect shot. And you can still bring in, say there's a Q&A where you're having live Q&A, you can bring people in for that. And you're kind of seamlessly switching between that live and pre-produced content.
Okay, thanks. Another question we have from the group is talking about exhibitors, like selling and showcasing their merchandise. Is that something that you are familiar with and has been done before on the platform?
Yes. So, and that's where one of the big differences between these platforms is how they do exhibit booths. And to me, Bizibos is not necessarily the best because it's not flashy. They don't have a 3D exhibit area. It is kind of that flat page. And what we have done is we link it to those interactive meeting rooms. And then it takes like a whole session page gets devoted to that exhibitor, and they have all the people that are going to be part of their sales team or exhibit team is right there, and you can connect with each of them or go to their profile, and then they can pull themselves in on webcam. They can have that chat room feature, and then they can find people that they want to connect to on that networking side of things, and they can get their information. Maybe, hey, I am available for a Zoom meeting later at whatever time. So it's a little bit of a workaround, but for the cost, it makes a lot of sense. Some of these platforms do get expensive that have more high-end exhibit features. I think that what was that last one I talked about? Hopin. I think Hopin is one of those ones that keeps adding more and more items there. And they might by now have a higher end feature built in, and they have a relatively low price.
Okay. This is probably a question you get often about pricing. Can you give us a rough ballpark of what something like this might cost? For example, if you're doing a conference with concurrent sessions?
Okay. Yeah. So it's very hard. Yeah. The pricing is really tough. And I'll give you like a really, really, really brief version. We charge, it's probably about $7 per attendee for that platform, right? And then from there, yeah, it depends on how many concurrent rooms you have and the types of rooms. If you're looking at the interactive meeting rooms where they sort of run themselves, we've been doing around $250 per concurrent room. So if you have one room type that goes 4 different times in one day, that's still one room. But if there's 4 going at once, then that would be 4. And we have been just charging those on a per event basis. So if you need them for 3 days, we still just keep it at that rate. And we're pretty flexible with our pricing depending on your event needs and overall budget. When it gets into that live stream with the call in people and the boxes flying around the screen and going full screen graphics and all of that, that gets to be a little bit more expensive. A room for that, calling it a stream room for that would be like maybe $1,000. And then the labor is where you end up kind of having a little bit more there because that's where you really need that rehearsal day. And it's going to be probably for it's called a sort of general session style room, a minimum of probably 3 people running that room. Because you're going to be bringing in content from elsewhere. You're going to be sending the links and making sure you've got the people on live video if you're going to be doing panels. So that's to where you get the labor gets a little bit higher, just because 3 people times multiple days starts to really add up, especially at like $60 an hour or so. So I always say reach out if you can get me an agenda. You can shoot it to that experiences email, or my email is Steven, Steven at MarxPro.com, MarxPro.com. And with an agenda and, how many concurrent sessions you want, how many being like a higher produced general session, and how many more of like a breakout session, I can get you a pretty quick turnaround on a real quote, but it'll give you a much more accurate price range.
Okay, great. We have 2 more questions. One of them is, how many meeting in a box do you have available, and are we allowed to send them out of state?
Yes. You know what? We've got, I think, 25 to 30 in-house right now already built, being kind of in use. We are sending them all across the country. We include a FedEx label already in it. So it's kind of one of those things, just let us know you're sending it back. We do charge on a per event basis. We'll be flexible with pricing, but it's about $400 per an event. So obviously we have corporate clients where that doesn't seem like much to them, but we'll be flexible on pricing, especially in-state. I know you said out-of-state, but in-state, if we can have a delivery, that saves us some money on the shipping and stuff like that. But yeah, we ship them all across the country. We do include, they're wiped down before they're even shipped out. And it's not like we're flipping these every single day, but we do include kind of sanitizing wipes inside as well, just to make sure everybody has that kind of peace of mind and comfort too.
Okay, great. And then our last question, we kind of answered, or were able to get it answered internally. So for those of you that were asking about Eventry, whether this can connect to Eventry and how hard is it to link to Eventry. Our Eventry guru said Eventry can incorporate links from any virtual platform in sessions listed in the event agenda, and that new virtual event features to the Eventry platform are currently under development. So basically, stay tuned, and we should have more information about how we could potentially link Eventry to your platforms. So thank you so much, Steven. This was great. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And to everybody that joined us today, we hope that you got some great, valuable information. This was recorded, so we will make sure that everyone gets the information for when it's available. And stay tuned for our next webinars. Thank you so much.